Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So reading from chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga, text number 1. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Anastriya Karma Phalam Karyam Karma Karo Tiyaha Sa Sannyasi Cha Yogi Cha Na Niragni Na Chakriya.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, one who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obliged is in the renounced order of life, and he is the true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no duty.
Text number 2. Yam sanyasamiti prahur yogam tam vidhi pandava nahi sanyastha sankalpo yogi bhavati kaschana.
What is called renunciation, you should know to be the same as yoga, or linking oneself with the Supreme, O son of Manu. For one can never become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification.
Text 3. Arukshor munir yogam karma karanam uchyate yogardasya tasveva sama karanam uchyate.
For one who's a neophyte in the Eightfold Yoga system, work is said to be the means. And for one who is already elevated in yoga, cessation of all material activities is said to be the means.
Text 4. Yada hinendriyateshu na karma swanusyajate sarva sankalpa sannyasi yoga tadochyate.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, there's somebody with their mic on. Thank you. A person is said to be elevated in yoga when, having renounced all material desires, he neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities. Someone still has their mic on.
Text number 5. Uddharedatmanatmanam natmanam avasadayat atmeva atmano bandhur atmeva ripuratmana.
One must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and the enemy as well.
Text 6. Bandhuratmanastasya yenatmeva atmana jita atmanastu satrutve varetatme satruvat.
For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will always remain the greatest enemy.
Text 7. Chitatmana prashantasya paramatma samahitaha sitoshna sukha dukkeshu tata mana apamanayo.
For one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same.
Text number 8. Gnana vignana triptatma kutasto vijitendriya yukta iti uchyate yogi samalostasma kanchana.
A person is said to be established in self-realization and is called a yogi or mystic when he is fully satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. Such a person is situated in transcendence and is self-controlled. He sees everything, whether it be pebbles, stones, or gold, as the same.
Text number 9. Suhin mitrari udasina madhyastha dveshu bandhusu sadhusvapi cha papeshu samabuddhir visishyate.
A person is considered still further advanced when he regards honest well-wishers, affectionate benefactors, the neutral, mediators, the envious, friends and enemies, the pious and the sinners, all with an equal mind.
Text number 10. Yogi yunjita satatam atmanam rahasi stita ekaki yata chitatma nirashir api rigraha.
A transcendentalist should always engage his body, mind, and self in relationship with the Supreme. He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from desires and feelings of possessiveness.
Text number 11 and 12. Sucho deshe pratishtapya stiram ashanam atmana natya uchritam nati nicham chaleg shutoram tatrekagram mana kritva yata chitendriya kriya upavishya sane Yunjat yogam atma visuddhaye.
To practice yoga, one should go to a secluded place and should lay kusha grass on the ground and then cover it with a deer skin and a soft cloth. The seat should be neither too high nor too low and should be situated in a sacred place. The yogi should sit on it very firmly and practice yoga to purify the heart by controlling his mind, senses, and activities and fixing the mind on one point.
Text 13 and 14. Samam kaya shirogravam taryan achalam stira samprekshya nashikagram swam disas valokrayan prasannatma vigattabhir brahmachari vrate stita manasamyam machitto yukta asita matpara.
One should hold one's body, neck, and head erect in a straight line and stare steadily at the tip of the nose. Thus, with an unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, completely free from sex life, one should meditate upon me within the heart and make me the ultimate goal of life.
Text 15. Yunjanevam sadatmanam yogi niyatamanasa santim nirvana paramam matsamsthitamatigatchati.
Thus, practicing constant control of the body, mind, and activities, the mystic transcendentalist, his mind regulated, attains the kingdom of God or the abode of Krishna by cessation of material existence.
Text 16. nityasnastu yogosti na chaikantam anasnata nachati swapna silasya jagrato naiva
There is no possibility of one becoming a yogi, O Arjuna, if one eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much or does not sleep enough.
Text 17. Yukta dhara virasya, yukta chetasya karmashu, yukta swapnava bodhasya, yoga bhavati dukkhaha.
He who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system.
Text 18. Yada viniyatam chittam atmani eva tishtase nispraha sarvakamebhyo yukta iti uchyate tada.
When the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, he is said to be well established in yoga.
Text 19. Yatha dipo nivattasto nangate somapasmita yogi no yatha chittasya yunjato yogamatmana.
As a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendent self.
Text 20 to 23. Yatro paramate chittam niruddham yoga sevaya yatra chaivatmanatmanam pashyanatmani tushyati sukhamatyantikam yattad buddhi grevam atidriyam veti yatra nacha chaivam stitas chalati tatvata yam labdva chapram labham manyate nadikam tata yasmin stito na dukkhena gurunapi vichalyate tam vidya dukhas samyoga viyogam yoga samjitam.
In the state of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material, mental activities by practice of yoga. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness, realized through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact.
Text 24. Sa nischayena yuktvatyo yogo nirvana chetasa sankalpa prabhavan kamams tvaktva sarvan asita manasayvendriya gramam viniyamya samanta tata.
One should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with determination and faith, and not be deviated from the path. One should abandon without exception all material desires born of mental speculation, and thus control all the senses on all the sides of the by the mind.
Thank you very much, Leela Vilasini Mataji and Anant
Hare,
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. So we are reading from chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita. And today's verse is verse number 11. Verse number 11 and 12 are together. So we just recite these verses. Read the synonyms, translation, and the purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. I purposefully read synonyms because Srila Prabhupada has put hard labor to translate each and every Sanskrit word, break it, sandhi vichhed, break it, and then give us the easy meaning. So the least we can do is read synonyms. And by continuously reading synonyms, we will familiarize ourselves with some of the Sanskrit words and retain the meaning of these words, which helps us in memorizing the verses. So I'll just read the verse now. शुचौ देशे प्रतिष्ठाप्य स्थिरमासनमात्मनः नाति उच्चरितं नाति नित्यं चिलजीन कुशोत्तरम् शुचौ देशे प्रतिष्ठाप्य स्थिरमासनमात्मनः नात्युरिक्षितं नाति नीचं चैलाजिनकोशोत्तरम् तत्रैकाग्रं मनः कृत्वा यत् चितेन्द्रियक्रियाः उपविश्यासने युज्य योगम् आत्मविशुद्धये तत्रैकाग्रं मनः कृत्वा यत् चितेन्द्रियक्रिया उपविश्यासने युज्यात् योगम् आत्मविशुद्धये. Sucho, in a sanctified deshe, land, pratisthapya, placing, sthiram, firm, asanam, seat, atmanah, his own, na, not, ati, to, uchcharitam, high, na, nor, ati, to, nicham, low, chaila, agna, of soft cloth and deer skin, kusha and kusha grass, uttaram covering, tatra thereupon, ekagram with one attention, manah mind, kritva making, yata chitta controlling the mind, indriya senses, kriya and activities, upavisya sitting, asana on the seat, yunjata should execute, yogam yoga practice, atma the heart, visuddhaye for clarifying. Translation: to practice yoga, one should go to a secluded place and should lay kusha grass on the ground and then cover it with a deer skin and a soft cloth. Seat should be neither too high nor too low and should be situated in a sacred place. Yogi should then sit on it very firmly and practice yoga to purify the heart by controlling his mind, senses, and activities and fixing the mind on one point. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Sacred place refers to a place of pilgrimage. In India, the yogis, the transcendentalists, or the devotees all leave home and reside in a sacred place such as Prayag, Mathura, Vrindavan, Rishikesh, Haridwar, and in solitude practice yoga where the sacred rivers like Jamuna and the Ganges flow. But often this is not possible especially for Westerners. The so-called yoga societies in big cities may be successful in earning material benefit, but they are not at all suitable for the actual practice of yoga. One who is not self-controlled and whose mind is not undisturbed cannot practice meditation. Therefore, in the Brihan Naridya Puran, it is said that in Kali Yuga, the present yuga or age, when people in general are short lived, slow in spiritual realization, and always disturbed by various anxieties, the best means of spiritual realization is chanting the holy name of the Lord. Hare Nam Eva Kevalam, Kalau Nasteva Gatir Anyatha. In this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, the only means of deliverance is chanting the holy name of the Lord. There is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way. Om Jnanam Timirindasya Jnananjana Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapad Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Tavadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So welcome again, dear devotees, in the today's session of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, in the chat session, in the chat session, chapter a day session. We were discussing yesterday the previous verses, the verse number 9 and the verse number 10. In verse number 10, we discussed yesterday how a devotee or a yogi who's very advanced is maintaining the vision of equality or equilibrium of mind when looking at the people of contrast qualities. He looks the sinner and the pious in the same way. He looks at a dishonest and honest man in the same way. He looks at the envious and the friends, or the friends and enemies in the same, with the equal mind. For him, it does not matter whether one is enemy or one is a friend. His behavior remains same or equal to both of them. And the stage prior to this stage, which was discussed in verse number 8, was that one would see the pebbles of the stones and the particles of the gold as the same. So for him, because there is no material attachment to the objects of the senses, the stone is as good as the gold. For some, gold can buy a lot of currency, and with that currency, it can buy him the objectives of his desires, which is lastly, which is largely to do with the um, gratification of the senses to fulfill the material objectives, material desires. And when such a person would see a stone, the stone is of no meaning to that person. But if the person has no attraction towards the sense objects, by achieving um, the higher taste in life, a higher taste of spirituality, then for him, this gold, even though it can buy a lot of um, wealth, it can buy a lot of cash, it can buy so many objects of the senses, because he's not interested, it wouldn't mean anything to him. And such a person would keep both stone and gold at the same platform. So that was a stage below than the stage which was in verse number 9, where one is seeing everyone as equal. Now, in the previous verses, we studied yesterday that how Krishna has emphasized from verse number 6 upon to verse number up to 9, so to say, how one can control their mind, because mind is the center stage of all the senses. The mind's function is to accept and to reject. And whatever mind has accepted is sure to be rejected by the mind at some point in time in the future. And something which is rejected can be again accepted by the mind. So mind is called frivolous and is always changing. And it is in such dynamics that mind functions. Also, the mind is reservoir of desires, and the unlimited, insatiable, uh, infinite, never exhaustible desires are arising on the surface of the mind, and therefore the mind then forces intelligence to find or devise the means to deploy some kind of strategy and action to be able to fulfill these desires through the working senses, hands and legs and mouth and ears and skin and um, the sex organs, etc. So in this way, the mind is the master of all the indriya or senses, and hence Krishna is emphasizing here that mind has to be controlled. Now, in this particular verse, Krishna is beginning to elaborate upon the uh, various practices of Ashtanga Yoga that one can adopt in the beginning stage. As we were discussing yesterday, these yoga means linking of the soul with the supreme soul, addition, which means you are establishing relationship with that Lord of whom one is part and parcel, and of whom the relationship is now forgotten. So one is reviving that forgotten relationship or dormant relationship within the heart. And that process of waking up or process of awakening of that dormant love within the heart is called yoga. And there are many words to it. There's a jnana yoga, there's a dhyana yoga, there's a karma yoga, and bhakti yoga. So not to get confused with any of the previous words. The yoga in itself is a mother statement or a generic understanding of that one is trying to link with the Lord. But on the name of yoga, if someone is just trying to do some bodily exercises and postures, then Prabhupada mentioned in the purport yesterday when we were reading, he's simply this is simply arise from the mind of some mental speculator. It's not a part of Vedic literature. It's not bona fide to call that yoga, because yoga primarily means linking with the God. And the verse number 10, we studied yesterday that how um, yogi would engage his mind, his body, and the self, which is the soul, in relationship with the Supreme. What to do that, he should be living alone in the secluded place and always control the mind again. And he should be free from material desires and the feeling of possessiveness. The feeling of possessiveness is that this belongs to me because I have worked for it. Hence, there's attachment with that fruit, hence I possess it. And the very first feeling of possessiveness is the feeling of possessiveness of this body. One always feels that I am this body, I possess this body is mine. And hence, anything in relationship to this body, which is the home, the wife, the children, the country, the job, the career, the identification, the designations, the wealth in the banks, the fixed assets, the variable assets, etc. All of them are mine because this body is mine. Hence, this consciousness of possessiveness extends from the body to anything which is related to the body. And this connection of possessiveness is made by the mind. At the time of leaving the body, anything and everything to do with the in relationship with the body, as well as the body itself, is dissoluted. So the relationship of the soul with the body is broken at the time of death. And at that time, this soul will then be transferring to another body. And to those whose consciousness is not purified by the process of yoga, they will continue to carry the attitude of possessiveness or the feeling of possessiveness in their next body. This is the process of transmigration. And when they achieve that body, and whoever womb they will come off, that particular body, mother, father designations will be given or understood, such as if somebody born in the body of a dog, then it would consider, okay, this is my mother, this is my father, here is my husband, here is my children, and would live in that sense of possessiveness and continue to live in that sense of possessiveness with that particular body. This is my area, this is where I'll bark, this is where I'll play, this is where I'll go past the stool, this is where I'll rest. If anyone enters into this area, I'll bark to death so that that other dog would not come into my area, because this is designated by my body to this for my enjoyment. And so on and so forth, body after body after body, this feeling of possessiveness and this desire of enjoyment continue on. So Krishna is just saying in the previous verse in 6:10, the yogi should be free from material desires and the feeling of possessiveness. And this particular verse, Krishna is beginning to explain how Ashtanga yoga has to be performed. So it seems like a very, very difficult proposition. If we look at the translation here, first of all, one should go to a secluded place. Then you lay some kusha grass on the ground, cover it with a deer skin so that all the insects, etc., do not bother you in your practice of yoga or concentration. Put a soft cloth. Then it's also explaining that the seat shouldn't be very high or low. It shouldn't be situated. It should be situated in a sacred place. One should sit on it very firmly and practice yoga to purify the heart by controlling senses, mind, activities, fixing the mind on one point. Many times when I was a student, I would see some of the other students trying to practice this kind of yoga. So they'll make a point on the wall in their room and they'll sit inside their rooms and then they will focus on that point. And while focusing on that point, they'll keep their posture as according to this verse. And soon after, either they fell asleep or they start getting nice ideas of and the plans of some kind of wonderful sense gratification and come off their meditation. They get rolling upon the action plan of what they have been meditating upon whilst they were meditating upon the point on the wall. So it's not that kind of meditation that Krishna is talking about here. It is something very, very difficult. How to control the mind, which is so much full of action, continuously governed by mode of passion. Not even a moment that mind remains stable. Even when the living entity is sleeping, in the sleeping state in the body, mind is pretty active. Mind is so active that it can produce the illusory reality called as dreams while the living entity is sleeping. So somebody who's seeing the living entity from a distance would say, oh, this person is sleeping. But the person who's sleeping is active. He's fearing, he's running, he's laughing, he's jumping off the cliff. Some tiger is chasing. Sometimes he's seeing his head cut off. Sometimes he's seeing as rewarded. Sometimes he's reliving the moments lived in the past. In reality, he would experience all the feelings, happiness, distress, anger, loneliness, you name it. How is it possible if mind was not active that in the sleeping state where apparently living entity is not very conscious of his own self, he is continuously be able to experience such emotions through the agency of the mind. Such a powerful mind. Krishna is saying you control it through the practice of yoga system. So I embarked upon this wonderful room conversation of Srila Prabhupada with 3 college students, which was in London. And it was on July the 15th, 1973. And I'll just read a part of it so we can appreciate the views of Srila Prabhupada, although it's already expressed in the purport, but this gives a better and clear understanding of this particular verse because this conversation is about this verse. So student 1, is that what you're trying to do in your movement? Prabhupada. I'm talking of yoga system. What is my movement that we shall discuss later on? First of all, the question was the yoga. You asked me that yoga means to control the mind and the senses. So if one is not able to control the mind and senses, he does not know what is the meaning of yoga. Student, right. Prabhupada, that you read in Bhagavad Gita. There's a disciple of Prabhupada here, Revati Nandan. Do you understand the necessity of controlling the mind and the senses? Can you see why it is necessary? Why would you say it is? Student 1. Yes, sort of. Not to the full extent. I can't see how it is necessary to a full extent because I can't control the mind and the senses. Srila Prabhupada, call Pradyumna. Student 1. Because I can't completely control my mind and senses, Revati Nandan. The thing is, that is covered when we are always acting on a sensual platform. Agitated in the mind is we do not experience ourself, our eternal self, which doesn't change. We become logged on temporary platform. Student 1. Yeah, in normal life, you mean? Most people you're talking about. Revati Nandan. Yes, because all your attention is lodged in the mind and the senses, and we're lost to ourselves, etc. Student 2. Where does Krishna fit into it? Where does Krishna fit into the yoga? Prabhupada, Revati Nandan. He wants to know if being self-situated is one thing, then where does Krishna enter into the system? That's the question. Prabhupada, when you're self-situated, just like in water, you're taking bath in a pool. Something has fallen on the water. Suppose your key has fallen. Now you'll have to find it. You're just trying to settle up the water and see where is the key. So when your mind and senses are controlled, then you can talk of Krishna. Before that, you cannot talk. Because Krishna is missing with uncontrolled mind and senses, you cannot capture Krishna. That is not possible. When the water is agitated, you cannot see where things have fallen. You have to wait to make the water calm and quiet. And you will see, oh, here is my key. Student 2, how can we get Krishna? How do you get Krishna? Chapter 6. Prabhupada is pointing out chapter 6. The practice of yoga is the process. Pradyumna. Should I read from the beginning? Prabhupada, read. Then these are the 2 verses that we read today are read by Pradyumna Prabhu. Then Pradyumna Prabhu is reading the first line of his translation. To practice yoga, one should go to a secluded place. And so on. Then Prabhupada. Now, first of all, you have to find out a secluded place. Yoga practice is not possible in a hotel or in a public place. It is not possible. You have to find out a secluded place. That is the first condition. Pradyumna. And should lay kusha grass on the ground and then cover it with a deer skin and a soft cloth. Prabhupada. Then there is a process of making the asana, deer skin, kushasan, then cloth. You have to sit down in that asana. Asana, dhyan, dharana, etc. The seat should neither be too high nor too low. So everything is here, Prabhupada is saying. It should not be too high nor too low. Then, Pradyumna, and should be situated in a sacred place, Prabhupada. A sacred place, just like formerly, those who were practicing yoga, they were going to Gangotri, where the Ganges is coming down in the Himalaya, in the Haridwar, in a secluded sacred place. These are the condition, first condition. So where are you getting these conditions fulfilled? You cannot practice yoga in a hotel or in a club. That is not possible. Student 2, how do you decide whether a place is sacred or not? Pradyumna, how do you decide whether a place is sacred or not? How do you tell? Revati Nandan, what is a sacred place? So all 3 are asking the same question. And now Srila Prabhupada is going to answer that. Prabhupada says, sacred place, generally, we take as a lonely place, solitary place. If it is not solitary, it's not sacred. Student 2, so is sacred the same as solitary? Prabhupada, yes. They used to sit down in the Himalaya where Ganges is coming. That is a sacred place. If you go simply on Ganges side, on the bank of Ganges, Yamuna, you will find immediately purify your mind. or on a seaside where there's nobody disturbing. These are all sacred places. Pradyumna, the yogi should then sit on it very firmly. And Prabhupada then goes on, yes, straight and perpendicular. You should practice yoga by controlling mind and senses. And Prabhupada, then he has to practice meditation for controlling the mind and the senses. First of all, asana, place, sacred place. Now asana, secluded place, that is stated. These are yogic processes. Student 3, what do you mean by controlling your mind? I mean controlling your senses. If your senses are controlled, can you see anything you wish, or hear anything you wish, or taste anything you wish? And Prabhupada, just explain what is controlled mind and senses. And Revtinandan then goes on. While being in control of mind and senses means that whatever destination you fix up with your intelligence, you understand, you want a particular result. Then if you're in control of your mind and senses, then it means that it won't disturb you. Srila Prabhupada. First of all, thing is that what is the aim of yoga? Practicing yoga. To achieve that end, that purpose, you have to control the mind. Because mind is very flickering, going here, there. So first of all, you must know what is the purpose of practicing yoga. Why you should practice yoga. So in order to achieve that goal, you have to concentrate your mind, and therefore you have to control the mind going here and there. That is control. Mind business is accepting and rejecting. That is mind's business. Immediately I accept, very good. Again, next moment, no, not good, reject. This is called flickering mind. So by yoga practice, you have to make your mind in such a way that whatever you decide, that is correct, not a state of rejecting and accepting. So first of all, you have to know why you are practicing yoga. As you ask the question, why control the mind? Next question is, why are you practicing? What is your aim? You are going to practice yoga. What is the aim? And so on. So this conversation goes on, and towards the end, Srila Prabhupada will conclude about the Bhakti Yoga. Now, so I was thinking that how difficult this process of yoga is, what is described by Lord Krishna to Arjun. And we just saw that how Srila Prabhupada is communicating with his 3 students, and how he's saying that there is no ideal situation in the cities of this world that you can now perform this kind of Ashtanga yoga. Therefore, he would emphasize, and in the purport he has already mentioned, Harinam, Harinam, Harinam Eka Kevalam, Kalau Nastev, Nastev, Nastev Gatiram, which also means that a great yoga system has been given to us by Srila Prabhupada and the previous acharyas. In the morning hours, that we sit down tight, and we sit straight, and we come in a meditative mood, and we pray to Lord Krishna to appear in the form of his holy names by his will, by sweet will. And then we humbly chant the holy names of the Lord. In that exercise, when we are then focusing our mind on the sound vibration, and we are concentrating on the sound vibration. In the process, the mind is really jumping from one track to other, from other track to the third track, and so on. There are, let's say, 8 tracks, multiple tracks of thoughts going on, because mind is so powerful. On one moment, it can hear the sound vibration, and second moment, it is gone. It's gone to another flickering thought. And the fourth moment, third moment is on the other thought. And fourth moment, it comes back on the sound vibration, listens Ra of the Ram, and goes back the 7th moment. On the 4th track, planning something, and so on. Throughout the chanting of even one Maha Mantra, the mind has jumped and flickered and turned around and turned on and turned off multiple times. What to talk about one full round of chanting, and what to talk about 16 rounds of 2 hours of continuous chanting. Now, this practice of bhakti yoga is so powerful because it is exactly what Krishna is describing here in dhyana yoga. That you practice to control the mind. The techniques uh, are different in different yogas. In Kali Yuga, this is the best technique. Kalau nastev 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 gatirandita. So one sadhaka who is trying to chant the holy names of the Lord, trying to rise early in the morning, trying to concentrate and focus on the sound vibration of Lord Krishna, feeling the humility in the heart, consciously chanting with feelings and love, and not letting mind to waver, to wander around, or not letting senses to sleep over, to become inattentive, and not letting, um, for the rest of the day, not letting oneself to be to be conducting offenses to the holy names, offenses to the Vaishnavas, to the deities. In such case, in such instance, we can see that this is as good and difficult of a sadhana to conduct, but it becomes easier because by the mercy of spiritual master, by the mercy of um, acharyas, and in the association of devotees, it becomes easier because you do not have to necessarily go to the Gangotri, Jamunotri, or Jamuna, or Ganga, or Himalayas. One can do this practice anywhere by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. You can sit in your own room on the comfort of your room or bed or a sofa or the floor, and chant the holy names of the Lord and feel really merciful. Lord Chaitanya says that when will the time come when my eyes will incessantly flow, the love of, the tears of love will flow through my eyes, and my voice will choke up, and the hands of the hair on my body will stand to their ends. When will that time come, O Krishna? So not that one would force upon himself these kind of situation, because that's the situation one would feel when one is chanting the pure name of the Lord, because Lord and his name are not different. And Lord descends by his own mercy, not by the not just by practice. So the where at one side the practice is important, on the same side one feels helpless, one feels humble, one that I'm not coming to this stage of that my voice is choking, that my tears are coming through my eyes, and my hairs are standing on end, because that's not happening with me. And therefore one is humbled that I'm so sinful. My heart is made of steel and iron. It does not really melt. And one feels that um, I'm not capable of this sadhana, but I'll nevertheless keep doing it, hoping against hope that someday Krishna will bestow his mercy upon me. And by the mercy of Radharani and Krishna, this will surely be achieved by practice and detachment and the mercy of devotees, acharyas, and Lord himself. So this verse of Bhagavad Gita definitely is very relevant to all of us. And as much as it talks about the practice of controlling the mind, senses, and activities, so is the process of the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. One has to control the senses by following the regulative principles, and control the mind by chanting the holy names, get powered up so that we can fight the dualities of this material world for the rest of the day. And one has to continuously be involved in devotional services, which reminds one of Krishna 24/7 throughout the week and the months and the years of life. Because such devotional service are action packed. For example, distributing books on the to the conditioned soul. When one does that, one is talking about Krishna. And the very intent of doing it reminds him of Krishna. And we can see how if one is distributing books, that one is completely focused on Krishna consciousness. And one can take any example of devotional service, daily worship, one is cleaning themselves, chanting the mantras, making sure the consciousness is good. If there one is cook and cooking for Krishna, one is putting their heart and mind completely and all their intelligence in making nice bhoga for Krishna, and ensuring the consciousness is correct and it's with love and devotion. Similarly, when one is chanting, one is putting the heart and soul into this activity. Not that the result of the chanting will please me. The result of the chanting could be chanting and a pure chanting and love of God. But the process in itself needs a lot of meditation and attention. And that process will lead us to yoga with the Supreme. And Prema Pumartha Mahan. One would achieve what is not achieved by anything else, which is love of Krishna and love of Godhead. If I stop here, if there is any comment and question, we can take that. Okay, there's a question on the chat box. Just a general question. There's a mention of deer skin. Is it animal skin? Also, there's a mention about Westerners not being able to go to pilgrimage places. This organization really concentrated on Westerners. So when the animals are dead, one can use those skins. Yes, it's animal skin. Specifically, one is in jungle. One has to keep himself safe. And apparently deer skin scare away a lot of other animals who are constantly disturbing the practitioner. And this is what Krishna has recommended. None of us has recommended that. The Supreme Lord has recommended. Because Srila Prabhupada was preaching in the West and mostly to the Western world. We have to remember that Prabhupada traveled to the West in 1966 on the order of his spiritual master to preach the message of Bhagavad Gita to the Western world. And therefore, when Srila Prabhupada was present in America, he was translating a lot of books in America at that point in time. He was dealing with a lot of Western devotees, not just a lot of Western devotees. I would say 100% of them were Western devotees, either in America or England or Europe. And there were negligible devotees from Bharatvarsh or India. Therefore, you will see in many purports that Prabhupada is contextualizing it to the present scenario where he was present. Nevertheless, these teachings are not just restricted to Westerners. It's applicable to anyone and everyone. He is creating this Westerner world because of the kind of culture he was preaching in. There's no Ganga here, there's no Jamuna here. So, and there's only cities. And that is applicable to Bombay also. So one can say, because Bombay has become like that, or Delhi has become like that, or any other city like Tokyo or Japan, in Japan. So the terminology Westerner would connote a sense of a developed, so-called developed cultures and developed technologies and developed worlds where the Vedic culture is almost absent. And even one is wanting to perform some kind of pious activity is very, very difficult. And even if one is not wanting to perform any sinful activities, one end up performing some sinful activities. So in that context, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning it. This organization, which is stated in the chat, is International Society of Krishna Consciousness. Prabhupada has mentioned the name International Society of Krishna Consciousness. It is not restricted to India or to any other part of the world. But as I said, International Society of Krishna Consciousness was found it in America, and his Western disciples, initial Western disciples, helped Prabhupada to propagate the movement of preaching in the various parts of the world. And later on, when Prabhupada came back to India after preaching in the West for several years, he came back with his Western disciples and he embarked into big preaching mission in Bombay. And from there, he went to Calcutta, Delhi, etc., and created these temples, one in Bombay, one in Vrindavan, one in Mayapur. And therefore, you would see these kind of wordings coming through Prabhupada's purport. And rightly so, because of the context that he was dealing with. Because he said that if Americans follow this philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, then whole world will follow, because America was leading and is leading country, and Americans are leading the world. And all of, we can see the how rest of the world is still following the so-called Western world. And Prabhupada meant to make, if these will become devotees, then obviously rest of the world will also become devotee, and that happened for sure. And we can see that how so many countries have taken inspirations, and now even China and Russia, they are all becoming first-class devotees. I remember hearing in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not accept wearing deer skin, as this is not suggested for this age. Is my understanding correct? So I would just like to recall this verse of Srila Rupa Goswami, where he explains that anything that can be, that if one rejects something that is can be used in the service of the Lord, that vairagya is falgu. That kind of renunciation is not accepted in Krishna consciousness. And anything that can be accepted in Krishna's service and you reject it. Similarly, anything that you are rejecting, which is can be accepted in Krishna consciousness, both looks very similar, then that is also a false renunciation. In a sense, if we can utilize anything in service of Krishna, then that is okay as a principle. So it's not that you deliberately go and go kill animals, etc. That's not the essence here. The purport is that utilizing using a deer skin in particular to be sitting in the samadhi state, covered with the kusha grass, everything has a significance. And therefore, Krishna himself is saying this. Krishna, whatever speaks becomes dharma. Bhagavad Gita is dharma because spoken by Krishna, and in that he's speaking this way. So we have to accept this. I'm not familiar with this incident. If you have read it in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it must be correct. And there's no point of wearing a deer skin for any of us when there is so much other things to wear. It is understood that one is going to forest to do the meditation. In that stage, he would not be carrying any worldly possessions. And in that stage, then the recommendation is made that he should sit on a deer skin, because a lot of reptiles, including snakes, would not come near to the deer skin. So I'm unable to verify this. Maybe you can read it again and enlighten us, or maybe I'll read it, but it must be correct. Is any deer skin used in any known temples? No, we don't use deer skin in the temples. We used cow skin on the mridanga. These are the cows which have left their bodies, and their skins are utilized to sound the vibrations of mridanga, which is used in the holy name, singing of the holy names of the Lord. And we use the conch shell, which is supposedly a bone of a living being, but we use it in the service of the Lord because the Vedas prescribe it, and we use it as a sacred paraphernalia in the deity worship. Not only we use it, we put it to our mouth and we sound the conch shell vibration. Okay, if there is no other question, if that is satisfactory,
Hare
if there
Krishna,
are no follow-up
Prabhuji.
questions on that, we can take it, or if somebody wants to say something, otherwise we'll close the session here.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Panchakalparubhyascha
Oh,
kripa sindhuvaiva cha patitanam pavnebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Thank you.
Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
yeah.
Jai Gaur Premanandi, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, Joli Mataji was saying something, I think.
It's all right. You closed already, haven't you, Prabhu?
Oh, Hare Krishna.
I don't think he heard me.
Yeah, looks like Prabhuji's on.
Oh,
You know.
sorry, my mic was on a mute. I'm so sorry. I've just realized that.
Oh, I guess that because it's okay if you got to go. It's fine.
No. Sorry, please speak up.
I
your
just
point,
had
Joli Mataji.
you know, when you're saying about remembering Krishna and how when you're trying to engage somebody into understanding, introduce Krishna to somebody by passing, and they say to you, why is Krishna so cruel to the little children, suffering the children? Why isn't he saving them? What's a quick, easy answer to appease that mood in the individual? What would you say is the best way to manage that?
It's actually such situation needs sympathy, and we'll have to hear them and sympathize that okay, there's a lot of suffering in the world,
Yeah,
and but that may not be the right stage of preaching them at that point in time. We make friends and sympathize with them, but when they're ready, then we can start to explain them that ultimately, when the body is left, the soul is no more in the body, and we explain them the theory of karma, how action and reactions are destined by our own karma. And whilst a person, the soul is in the body of a child, it is a continuation of a previous body which was old, and therefore those karmic reactions are being carried on. It is our inability to see the continuation of the body, but the child, of course, are very innocent. However, uh, that body is not fully grown, and therefore it is not able to take actions based on the desires, or the desires have not manifested. But when the same body grows older, then the desires manifest and karmic reactions are there. So it is a continuation from the previous body, and we can say child is innocent, but the same child was not so innocent. Hence, the karmic reactions are following up. Therefore, as adults, how we can progress our lives in such a way that we do not fall prey to such karmic reactions. Now, it's a harsh reality. It is a very hard pill, and it's very difficult to give in such occasions and times. So, I would suggest that if we come across such situations, we just give them prasadam, we just make them friends, and we sympathize, and we go with the emotions. And if at all, we can give them a book to read. But when they become good friends, then we can, on the strength of trust that we have developed with them, we can explain them further details. This is this I would think would be a good approach.
I remember the case where there was, I think it was a cricketer, when he said a disabled child was due to the karmic reaction previous lives. The whole world turned on him. I don't even remember that case. And he became infamous then. But
Right.
yeah, it's a quite a difficult, as you say, if you got that opportunity to introduce a little book or another meeting with them, that'd be great. Yeah.
So Srila Prabhupada says that this chanting of the holy name is like a pill, like a medicine. So if you can introduce them somehow to the holy names, then in due course of time, as one drinks sugarcane juice, the pilia, the jaundice will go away. But initially, it is very, very bitter. Such sweet juice feels very, 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 very bitter. The solution is you keep drinking the juice, and after some time, jaundice goes away. So if we can make good friends with such people, give them our love and kindness, somehow encourage them to take some little prasad, somehow show them some kind of faith, our faith, transfer that faith into them for chanting the holy names. In due course of time, they'll understand. But logically, it will be very difficult to persuade the idea of a karmic, theory to them at that point in time. It's best to do this way, and then give them a book, because then the book can be read and they'll understand through the super soul.
Prabhuji also, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, good evening.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
On the this thing that Pilia, this I remembered something on the deer skin thing. If we look at it in the context of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is on the side of Dharma. He's okay if Arjun kills his great grandfather or his guru or his even his cousin brothers. I mean, he's sanctioning taking even a human life for Arjun as a soldier under that dharma, if he's fighting for dharma. So for a yogi, if the dharma is to insulate himself from the earth, so that his energy doesn't get earthed, so to say, with a deer skin, Krishna is not saying you first go for hunting for a deer and kill it and eat it and then sit on the... He's saying just insulate. So I think in the whole larger context, this whole question becomes irrelevant. So, because I have read this twice, and this same thing came to my mind, but then I came to the conclusion that this is not at all relevant to what Gita is talking about, because he's also sanctioning to kill, a human life. What to say of a dead deer skin and sitting on it?
So, no, thank you for your input. We have questions, and there are answers to the questions. And all the questions are in some way are relevant to the person who's asking. And therefore, I'm sure this is an assembly of wonderful devotees, and nobody is perhaps trying to do an argument out of sake of argument. There are genuine questions, and your point is also very, very relevant. And that if the bloodshed can happen, then why not the things that can be utilized should be utilized in the process of dharma, which is what we mentioned about Rupa Goswami's verse, where he has mentioned that one thing that can be utilized should not be rejected. And Krishna is also pointing out that. So I think the answer clarifies the doubts, and that's okay. It's good to ask questions if they are there in the mind, so that we get clarity of thought, we get clarity on, and sometimes we may have to research and see what is the right answer, and refer to Srila Prabhupada answers and books and research. So that's okay. We should definitely inculcate this behavior of questions and answers.
Totally agree with you, Prabhu. I was just coming at it from a different viewpoint, from a different dimension.
I appreciate. Thank you for your point. And at the same time, we don't want to discourage questions. It's fine. It's okay. Is there any other comment or question? Okay, so maybe now is the time that we can humbly pay our respects to each other by chanting this mantra. Vanchakalpa Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Bo.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama.
Thank you, everybody.
Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you.